Where officially the war is over, but bomb attacks and other violence are almost a daily occurrence. After peaking 7 years ago, fighting between Shia and Sunni Muslims has now intensified. Almost 8,000 civilians were killed in attacks throughout last year. Well, our reporter Anne-Sophie Lemoff met with Baghdad's FALCON Brigade. That's the city's regular first responders.
The alarm has sounded and the Falcons of Baghdad scramble to their posts. They're heading to Hay al-Amal, a Shiite neighbourhood where a car bomb has just gone off.
The neighbourhoods they are targeting are Shiite, not Sunni. It always happens in Shiite areas. That's where Al-Qaeda operates.
The bomb was placed in a taxi and sent into a bustling commercial area, the type that's a regular target of Al-Qaeda attacks. This time, 9 injured people are brought to hospital. 2 more victims are left dead. Both were police officers who, after spotting the suspicious vehicle, cordoned off the street before breaking into the car. Their courageous actions were fatal.
The explosion happened on the other side of the road, 150 or 200 meters from here. But look at the damage done to this wall. Do you see what they put in it? They put iron shards inside the car.
A shrapnel-packed bomb designed to cause as much injury as possible. Some have even been found loaded with nails dipped in rat poison. Baghdad is home to a thriving and all too inventive bomb-making industry. To combat it, the FALCON Brigade was set up in 2005. It's composed of 4 teams of 12 men. Their dangerous missions put them in Al-Qaeda's crosshairs. Dozens have been seriously wounded or killed during bomb disposal operations.
When I leave the house for the day, I say my prayers. Likewise, when we head out on a mission, not just me, SAAD too, and all the others, because you know that when you leave the house, you mightn't come back. You might never see your family again.
The team hardly has time to decompress after their mission when they're called out again, this time to central Baghdad. A homemade remote control bomb has just been discovered at the door of a property in the affluent district of Zayuna. It's a residential area populated by retired army officers and government officials.
It's here. It's here. There's the mobile phone under here. I took it from the plastic bag, I threw it, and I ran.
With the aid of a bomb disposal robot, the device was carried to a more isolated spot, then defused by hand. Close-up work that puts the lives of the team at great risk.
It's a mortar shell left over from the war, wired up to an electrical circuit and a mobile phone.
All connected to batteries and a high explosive. This type of device is a regular find for the FALCON Brigade. 4 days after the failed attack, tragedy on Palestine Street. The victim is a 60-year-old butcher. The dead man was not the target. The car he was driving belonged to a friend of his, a friend who a few days earlier had stabbed a would-be suicide bomber before he could blow himself up. Seeking revenge on the man who foiled the attempt, Al-Qaeda allegedly attached a bomb to the underside of his vehicle. Dozens of booby traps and homemade bombs go off every week in Iraq. Last year, more than 6,000 Iraqis lost their lives to bombs. Countless more were wounded. 9 months ago, Saad received injuries to his face, legs and chest in a bomb attack.
My head was in bits and the people in front of me lost limbs, or worse. But God saved me for my children.
Still suffering from pain, Saad is unable to work. The impoverished family have had to move to a shanty town in the centre of Baghdad. Without state aid, survivors find it hard to rebuild their lives after a bomb.
Well, for more on this, we can speak now with Hadil Al-Sayeg, a senior reporter with The National. That's an Abu Dhabi-based newspaper. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, we just saw in that report some of the people who lay their lives on the line trying to keep Iraqis safe in the capital. What's the current situation like there in Baghdad?
It's complete chaos. I mean, there's been a surge in attacks. As you said in the documentary, more than 6,000 people have passed away or have died as a result of violent attacks in Iraq last year. The truth of the matter is that the level of intelligence is very basic in Iraq and needs to be ramped up. And there are obviously some structural reasons why the surge in violence is actually happening.
Now let's move a bit beyond the capital into areas, of course, of Anbar province. They've fallen out of government control in the past month, actually. What's the current state there in cities like Fallujah and Ramadi?
In Ramadi, it seems like there is a direct offensive between the tribes that are allied with Nouri al-Maliki and the Shia-led government. And then you have another group of tribes that are allied with the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which is a local franchise of al-Qaeda. And then you have another group, which are the military council of Anbar, who are not allied with either. And they are a natural outpost of the Sunni-led demonstrations in Anbar over the last year.
Now, all of these opposing factions, what is the end result now, this rise then in the displacement, rather, between these three factions?
It seems that, obviously, I think putting the Islamic State of Syria, Iraq and Syria aside, there seems to be a combination of both a military offensive between the tribes that are allied with the Maliki government and the tribes that are not allied with either. And at the same time, there are negotiations that are ongoing between the two various factions. However, it seems like the military offensive is taking the center stage at the moment.
What impact has this rise in violence in Anbar province? What impact has it had on the Iraqi government? Has it given it a bit of a wake-up call?
I think the Iraqi government has generally been very wary, and dealing with a situation like this, you have a series of competitive factions, and at the same time, you have a very, very strong Shia leadership that is unwilling to give certain concessions for the Sunni group of people in Anbar, for example. Anbar has been largely ignored for the last 2 years. You have the tribes that are currently now allied with the Maliki government. They played a leading role during when the U.S. troops were in Iraq in quashing the insurgency. So they've been kind of left behind over the past 2 years. They haven't really been given any kind of money or security or equipment to be able to maintain that area. So there are cleavages within Anbar and Fallujah that are completely controlled by tribal militants.
You mentioned earlier poor intelligence. What are some of the steps that need to be done in order to halt the violence?
First of all, they need to include more Sunnis into the security forces and in the interior ministry in Iraq. Obviously, a lot of them have been excluded just over the last couple of years. Secondly, they need to bring better equipment. Now, I find that when there are times of crisis, and I've seen this particularly in Hilla, there are vans that actually scan for detonated bombs and any kind of weaponry. And they usually put these at checkpoints. However, majority of the checkpoints that are used, they use what has been kind of ridiculed as the magic wand. It's actually a golf ball detector. The maker has been tried in court in the UK for selling a fraudulent security equipment that actually does not work. It's not functional. So if you consider that as their basic level of security, it's really worrying.
All right, Hadila Al-Sayeg, senior reporter with The National, that's a newspaper based there in Abu Dhabi. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, Live from Paris continues after the break, and we'll have, of course, more in the day's top stories. Plus, France 24's Catherine Nicholson joins me to talk about the famous golden statue as the Oscar nominations are now known. We'll talk about just who made the cut. Do stay tuned. That's after the break.